Okay, so let's see. Sorry, by child free. Hi. Hi, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to. Oh, no, you can. Hola, mami, no. No puedes estar en la llamada. Ya va. Ya va. Un momento.
Hello. Sorry, I was in the middle of getting this situated,
Oh, yeah.
but
I just
we are here.
time, without making any type of live. So I just forgot how to do many things. So I was just remembering how can I call her?
I'm gonna slap on a filter because I look like garbage, so we're gonna do that one.
Oh no, you look good. That's fine.
Thanks.
So well, in the meantime that we're just waiting for the rest of people, let's just give it like more minutes. I just would like to take advantage, first of all, to thank you for your time, for accepting my invitation
Of
just to talk
course.
about this. Yeah, I know that it's sometimes difficult just to find somebody who is in tune with you when it comes to this topic,
Right.
especially because even though I'm 35 and I do not hide my age whatsoever, and I know that at this time many women feel desperate because they don't have their child yet. And in my case, it's not like that. I feel like you can find joy, by living by yourself, spending time with your other relatives. But anyways, we're gonna have plenty of time to talk about that. However, I take advantage of this time that we're waiting for introducing ourselves, so the people that it's joining can, know a little bit more about
Yeah.
us. And yeah, I don't know. Would you like to start, or you want me to do it?
You can go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Well, so I'm just seeing that there's like zero people there. And well, my name is Pamela. I am from Venezuela, but I live in Mexico. Right now, I have been here for almost like 3 years and a half. And I just, I'm studying psychology. I am managing this page. I'm new in this thing about creating content. Sometimes it's not actually very easy because I used to be a teacher. And that's the part when I realized, in fact, by working as a teacher is when I realized that I didn't want to be a mom. But, I'm going to talk about
Okay.
ahead. And I don't know, nothing else that I would like to share right now, just that. And if you know a little bit more, you can just ask me any question. And I'm going to be reading you guys, whomever that wants to make questions to her or to me, I'm going to be reading and,
Yeah.
share more. So your turn.
Well, nice to meet you, Pamela. My name is Marcella. A lot of people know me as Child Free Millennial. But I guess a little bit about me. I am 27. I live in Missouri in the United States of America, right in the middle of the U.S. What else? I also was not necessarily a teacher, but I used to be a full-time nanny, and that is how I came to the realization that maybe motherhood was not for me. And now, fast forwarding a few years, I know for a fact that motherhood is not for me. So it's kind of funny that we have that same similarities of being with kids, working with kids, and that being the reason why we're like, maybe not.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I guess many people don't have it clear. Perhaps it's because they don't spend a lot of time with kids and they don't realize how the thing that is. And I remember back then, like, I don't know, 4 years ago, I was in a kindergarten. And that was my aha moment when I realized, like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. You
Right.
know that it demands, if you have to be a mom, you have to be a, for 24/7. And that's something that I wasn't willing to do, because I just spent 8 hours with them sometimes. But it was just taking a lot of energy from me that I was like, no way, I can't do this.
Same
And
here, girl.
and you know, this is a topic that I don't know there in Missouri how people actually take it when they listen to somebody to say openly, I don't want to be a mom. But here in Latin America, it's actually kind of complicated, because I actually told my parents, but they don't take it seriously.
Ooh.
And they say, like, face, like, you're going to regret it. Maybe you're going to have a child. But I know for a fact that I don't want to have it. It doesn't mean that I don't like children, because many people tend to confuse that just because you don't want to have a child, you hate children. It's not the case.
Right.
But I don't want to take that responsibility. And that just led me to the first question. Many people, and I guess this is what I was just trying to say, think that because we don't want to have children, we hate children. And what was the moment that you realized that you didn't want to be a mom? And what was your aha moment for you?
Right, love that. I as well have Hispanic parents, and so I find that super funny that you're like, well, they don't take me seriously, because mine definitely are like, oh, well, you know, like maybe later on. But I think now they understand that. I mean, with my whole platform and online presence, they're like, maybe she's serious about it, you know. But to answer your question, I came to the realization about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. And it wasn't necessarily like an overnight thing where I woke up and was just like, oh, I don't want to have kids. It was kind of like an ongoing process. I will say this is important. I used to be married. I got divorced at the end of 2021, I believe. It's been so long now. I think 2021. But while I was married, I had been married for about 4.5 years. So as someone who had been married that long, obviously, all the people asking you, when are you going to have a baby? When am I going to have a grandbaby? From my mother-in-law and all those things. And I really had to like think about it, because at that moment I was like, oh my gosh, like people are expecting me to do this. Like I was 24, 25, and I was like, I'm of age, like I'm married. I have a, you know, a stable, home environment, financial, like I'm good. Like textbook wise, I would have been the perfect candidate to have a baby, right? But I didn't want it. I have never really wanted to have kids. I grew up with 3 older brothers. I don't know, maybe that was what contributed to me not wanting to have kids. I don't know. So I've never babysat. I'd never really played with dolls. It was mostly just me playing, you know, action figures or cars with my brothers. And so I had to sit down and really talk to myself. And the thing was, like, going into the marriage, I was 20, 21. So we didn't really talk about having kids. We were young. We just graduated high school, college. And so we were never like, okay, this is what I want in the future. Like, I want to have kids or I don't want to have kids. And so I had a conversation with my ex, and I was like, well, I don't know if I want to have kids or not. And he was like, actually, I'm kind of on the same page as you. And I was like, okay, great. And we kind of just left it at that. But I will say he was an only child. And so as an only child, the parents only have one shot at having grandkids. So that also played into the story of me, you know, finding what I wanted. And so anyways, a beginning of 2021, I really had to sit down with myself, and I was like, what do you want? Like, what do I want? Do I want to have kids? Like, is this something that I really want? I know that, you know, I'm in a relationship and you know, everything's stable and everything's good, but this isn't something that I've ever desired. And so for me, I was like, I don't want to do this, but yet everybody's expecting me to do this. I also am Christian. I come from a very religious background. And so it's like Hispanic, Christian, all the things. People are like, you're ready. Like, this is your calling. And I'm like, you know what? I see where you're coming from, but I don't want to do it. So anyways, fast forward a little bit into the spring of 2021, went into a separation, which ended up in a divorce. But during that time is when I created this online presence, Child Free Millennial. And it's because I did not know what to do. I was like, well, if anything, I want to be able to talk to other people like you who are on the fence or maybe don't want to have kids. Like, they know for a fact that they don't want to, because I had no experience. I didn't know anyone in my close family or circle or friends, no one in my life that was child-free, childless, on the fence about having kids. My best friend, all my friends from high school, aunts and uncles, like everybody in my family and my close friends were having kids. And so for me, I was like, well, I'm like a black sheep. I don't know what to do. I have nobody to talk to about this because nobody can understand where I'm coming from. And so anyways, I just created this whole online platform in 2021 for just honestly, like, just the sheer hope that I would find other people who were like me, because as far as I knew, I was the only person on this planet who did not want to have kids. That's how like blinded I was to the fact that having kids was a choice. And so whenever people tell me, well, duh, having kids is a choice, like why are you even talking about that? I'm like, because I was 25 years old and did not know that having kids was a choice. And I know there's plenty of other people out there who think the same way that I do. And until they come across someone online or an article or Google or something, they won't know. They won't know. And they might take it even a step further than I did and might just have a kid to please, everybody else around them. So long-winded answer, but that's basically how I came to the realization that I didn't want to have kids.
I guess, and I'm actually really happy that everyone is joining and it's saying, like, same girl, I feel you, and, and I completely understand what you're saying, because it is something that first you need to desire, just to be a mom. Yeah. Because I know that there are many situations in regards to being a parent. There are many people that disregards the need of the children, and then you have children out there who are living in households that are a mess, a disaster, abusive, parents, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's something that actually created a lot of self-conscious in me, in saying to myself, am I actually ready or prepared for this? Am I actually the person who is able to provide with everything to my child? Because we need to realize that we're in a reality where everything is harder. And we need to understand the economy right now, it's not perfect. And even though if you don't have a child, you're not able to support, maybe to provide to yourself most of the time. And how is it that you're going to think about having some other human being and being able to provide them with everything they need? And especially the emotional needs, all the responsibility that comes with having a child, that is from school to their friends and the type of things that I am the type of person that worries a lot. And I know for a fact that, for example, if I have a child, I'm not going to be able to provide with the protection that they're going to need. And I'm not going to avoid them to suffer from any situation, because they need to experience their own things. Right. And that's something that kills me, thinking that perhaps they're going to suffer something or an experience that I'm not going to be able to avoid because I'm not going to be there. And part of being a parent is also brave. I do respect the people that have children and they decide to be a parent. I respect it. Yeah. But what I don't like when people judge me because I do not want to have a child. Yep. Or even that I have heard, because not necessarily they have said it to my face, but it's something that I have heard as well, that they say, like, women that do not want to have a child, they are selfish. And I completely disagree about that. How is it that you're going to be selfish if you're not bringing somebody to the world just to have awful situations or just to live a really awful, thing? You're just taking care of what can happen to them. So you prefer not to give a human being the opportunity to be here in the world, and when you're not able to provide to them. Or even if you are able to provide to them, if you don't want to have them, what's the case? They should understand that you are able to be happy by yourself. And in my case, I see myself spending time with my parents. I already have, my relatives that are the ones who are very close to me, and to me that's more than enough. The only thing that I have that is closest to a child is my cat. That is basically, I take care and I'm able to, give and provide everything for him. But it's a completely different thing. It's not the same having a pet than having a child, because it requires so much more. So that leads me. I'm just going to start reading, guys. If you have any questions, remember. Also, don't even. There's not only the case of women not wanting to have children. There are also men. That they don't want children either. And I'm not talking about the men that have children and they don't take care of them, that they are irresponsible. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the ones that they decide not to have children and still they know, they understand what comes with. And so what leads the next question, that what will you do? You told me that you were already married, but what would you do if you just fall in love again and you find somebody that actually wants to have a child? What kind of agreement would you, get with them?
Ooh,
What would you do?
love that question. Spicy. We like that.
We're young. We just meet so many people sometimes, and what can happen? Anything can happen. And maybe they will want children. And so what would you do in that situation?
So I'm actually in a relationship now. I'm with a boy that I've been with for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And thankfully, fortunately for me, he's on the same page, and he's like, nope, don't want to have any kids. He loves the idea of not having kids. And he grew up in a home where, and I should say, like, because a lot of times people assume that because I don't want to have kids, it's because I came from a broken home, or that I didn't have love, or that my parents were abusive or whatever. Because a lot of the times people resent their parents to the point where they're like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to have kids because when I was a child, it sucked, And so I will say I am so lucky, so blessed. I live within 30 minutes of all of my siblings and my parents. We hang out all the time. It was the most perfect childhood ever. They were loving, they were supportive. And so I always have to say that I came from a very, very loving home, and a religious home, a Hispanic home. So there is nothing wrong with the way that I grew up. There's no reason why I shouldn't want to have kids. But like you said earlier, the desire, never having the desire to have kids. But let's set that aside. Let's say me and my boyfriend break up and I find someone who wants to have kids. I would know that that wouldn't be the person for me. Plain and simple. I would just be like, hey, I know that, like, we have this thing, and maybe it's, I don't know, love at first sight, who knows? But if that person is not on the same page as me, then I know that that person is not actually for me. There's so many people out there, and I feel like compromising something that is so huge, like bringing a person into this world, is not something that I could just casually be like, oh, yeah, like, totally, just because you want to have a kid, like, yeah, let's do it. Absolutely not. I would be on freaking drugs if I was to do that. And if for some reason, I know a lot of times people are like, oh, well, you're still young, like you could change your mind. I mean, I'm only 27. I am still young. I do realize that. Yeah. And I always tell people, yes, you're right. I could change my mind. You're totally right. That's a valid statement to make. But at the same time, please respect if I don't change my mind. Like, what if I don't change my mind? What are you going to say then? Are you going to criticize me? Are you, like you said, people just say the worst things in the world, saying you're selfish and all these things. It's like, but can't you just accept the fact that this is where I'm at? Like, can you accept me for who I am? Because if you can't, then you're not my friend. You're not someone who is an ally. You don't actually care about me. You just care about what I'm able to bring to the table, if that makes sense. And so for me, if I was to find someone in a theoretical setting who wanted to have kids, I would just be like, I can't do that for you. Like, I know plenty of other girls who can, but that's not me.
Actually, look, I'm reading something, and I completely agree with you. Tigress Silps, he says, I feel people who want to have kids are actually the selfish ones, as they are the ones who not want to be alone and wanting some sort of support their old age. In eastern part of the world, I think this is a pretty common reason. Many people have children because they believe that they don't want to end it up by themselves, and they believe that they can rely on their children. But, sadly, most of the time, you can end it up by yourself, even though having children. So that's not, that is not supposed to be the reason. What do you think about that?
I love when people tell me that, oh, you're going to die alone. Who's going to hold your hand when you're on your deathbed? I love when people tell me that, because I have experienced so much growing up as a Christian person. I mean, if anyone here is religious at all, you know that, like, during Christmas time, you always go to the nursing homes and you visit the old, and also, like, that's just part of the gig, right? But I can't tell you how many times these people have had children and their children are nowhere to be found. Yet these strangers, right? Like, maybe it was my mom's friend, or maybe it was like a dad's old co-worker, that we were there to, bring them some light, some warmth, and a sense of community and love. You're not guaranteed anything in life. The thing is, like, you could outlive your kid. Your kid could die in a car accident. You know, there's so many ways that your kid could pass away before you do that you might not even get to the point where you're on your deathbed waiting for your child to come hold your hand. Like, the thing for me is life is not guaranteed. I mean, who says that we're going to live till tomorrow? You know, like, there's so many ways that you could pass away. And so for me, it's like, why would I focus on something that's so trivial? It's like me trying to focus on something that doesn't even exist, because it doesn't. There's no guarantee that you're going to be on your deathbed, that you're going to be alone, crying, regretting the fact that you didn't have kids. For me, it's like I would rather enjoy the time that I have now, my life now, my present day, than worry about something that couldn't even happen in the future. So when people are like, oh, well, you know, you're going to be alone, like, I will be alone if I choose to be alone. That, like, no, plain and simple, if I want to be surrounded by people, I have family. Like, it's not like people who are like, oh, you don't have kids, you don't have family. It's like, yes, I do. I have brothers, I have aunts and uncles, I have cousins, I have parents. I have so many people in my life that I consider family. So I think that is the dumbest reason why anyone would have a kid, is to have someone there to hold their hand when they're dying, or so that they won't feel lonely at Christmas time. Like, I'm fine with being by myself.
That's true. Here, well, I have Manny Alamo. He says, "Hi, Pamela. What do you do exactly?" Well, right now I'm studying to become a psychology, and I create this content. Like I said, I'm kind of new on this, and so my profession is I'm a teacher, and I have taught to, you know, any different type of ages. So I have worked with children, I have worked with adults, and with teenagers. So I could realize that definitely with those experiences that I'm not the type of person that connects with children. Actually, I remember back when I was in kindergarten that one of the complaints of the principal every time we had a meeting is that you don't connect with the children. And I was like, but I'm trying my best. But it's something that is natural with me. They were like mocking me, like, no, you just smile at them, but you don't hug them, or stuff like that. It's really difficult for me. And it doesn't mean that I don't like them. I like children. I have my niece. I love her. But, you know, sometimes it's just that you need to be very patient. And I guess I'm the type of person that it's really lonely sometimes. I love to spend time by my own. I love just to take my naps sometimes whenever I can. I love my silence and all this stuff. And, you know, that when you're living with a child, sometimes you don't have that type of space. And it is like that. But it's just the fact that when I remember back when I was in the kindergarten, they said something like, you don't connect with the children. That's something that comes naturally in me. So that's when I realized, I mean, this is not for me. I'm not the mother type, and it's fine. That doesn't make me a bad person. And that's what also many, because I guess for men from some other countries, especially the Middle Eastern, they believe that women that want to have children are perhaps bad women, or I don't know how you're going to call it. Here I have a question. How would you do, how do you know that you won't regret about your decision of not being a mom?
I love that. And the thing is, like, before I answer that, regret is universal. The thing is, like, everybody experiences regret in their life. I've already experienced regret at 27 years old. There's tons of things that I regret. Things about schooling, about work, about places that I could have lived. You know, there's so many things where I'm like, dang, I really regret not doing that, or I really regret doing that. Even like, you know, getting in a marriage, people are like, do you regret it? No, I don't regret it, even though it seemed like it was the worst thing in the world. I got divorced. But there's things that you regret and you don't regret. And so for me, it's like, I don't know. I don't know right now if it's something that I'm going to regret, because I'm in the moment. Like, I'm living my life right now currently, not thinking about that. Like I said earlier, I'm not thinking about what could potentially happen, the potential regret that I could feel. All I know is that everyone experiences regret. It's a universal thing. And so if I was to experience regret of not having children, that's okay. Like, that's something that I have to deal with. Nobody else has to deal with that except for me. And if I don't experience regret, even better, you know, like, even better if I live my life all the way through and I'm like, I absolutely do not regret that. So I think when people are like, oh, you're going to regret it, it's like, okay, but you might regret having your kid, but I'm not saying that, you know, like, I'm not the one who's being super rude and telling you, oh, do you regret having your fourth child? Like, no, I would never say that. So I don't understand why people are telling me, oh, you'll regret not having kids. It's like, okay, but you don't know me. So it's so, it makes me so mad, but also it's a teaching moment, because like you said, a lot of people, and pointing out the Middle Eastern culture, but there's a lot of people who don't realize that having kids is a choice. And so I feel like, yes, sometimes it's so annoying because they're like saying all these just dumb comments and you're like, okay, whatever. But at the same time, I think it's a good moment to teach them, to be like, hey, by the way, there's another way that you can live. Like, just because I don't want to have kids doesn't mean I'm miserable. And try to teach them in a way so that maybe the next time they encounter someone who doesn't want to have kids, they'll be like, oh, I remember that one person that told me this, this, and this. And so they might, I don't know, hopefully, fingers crossed, they might be a little bit more empathetic and understanding of people who aren't living the same life as them.
Exactly. I guess it's something that it has been a long way, because there are many women that have decided to not have children, from a long time ago. This is something that is not new. However, until this, many, also not only women, but men do not accept the fact that we exist, and we are very clear about the fact that we don't want to have children, and that it's also fine, And, when it comes to this part, what do you have to say about the perks of living in a child-free life? Because I know that many people think, okay, you are lonely, all this stuff, but which are the perks of living a child-free life?
Love
what do you
that. I also will say, if you want to be a mom, if you want to be a dad, if you've always had that pull, like that desire, then go for it. I am not telling you not to have children. That is the last thing that I'm trying to tell anyone. I think you know what's best for you. If you want to be a parent, then go for it. If you know that maybe I don't connect with kids, like you were saying, the people at school being like, what's going on? If you know that's just not who you are naturally, then don't do it. Nobody's forcing you. And if they are, then get away from that person, So I will say that I definitely think there are perks. Obviously, people are like, oh, what do you do all day? Like, you just sleep and sit at home and relax. It's like, yes, some days I do. Like, some days I do get to sleep, nap, like hang out, watch Netflix, watch my favorite TV show. Like, yes, that is the reality of being child-free. Also, the perks of being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, within reason. Obviously, there's like monetary values. I can't just like pick up and, move to Bali and live there for the rest of my life. Like, I'd have to plan and, make all those arrangements. But at the same time, like, I just love the freedom of it. Just being able to do what I want. Even just like, I went to the grocery store literally before this. I was like, oh, I got like 30 minutes. I can go to the grocery store. It took me 30 minutes, not an hour, because I didn't have to get a kid ready, get his shoes on, his jacket, his coat, get him in the car seat, put him in like, no, literally just got my keys, got in the car, went and got the food and came back home. Like, it's just those little everyday things that I'm like, this is amazing. And I cannot imagine my life any other way. I could not imagine myself being a mother. As much as I do love kids, and I do. I mean, I currently am managing a kids soccer league, and people look at me crazy, and I'm like, just because I don't want to have kids doesn't mean that I hate them, But the thing is, like you said, being a teacher, being a nanny, I have had those very intimate and real moments with kids when they are screaming, when they are, like the explosive diapers. Like, I have experienced that. And for me, I'm like, I'm going to pass. Like, I don't want that.
Yeah. You're just saying something that is really important, how the kids manage their emotions. Because sometimes, I know that as grown-ups, sometimes we don't even know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you tell, you learn so much. I know that there are also benefits of being a parent. You learn so much about how to communicate with them whenever you have a healthy relationship with your children, of course. But yes, I guess the thing about this is that even though you don't want to have a child and you get to have the chance of spending time with them, you also learn. I have a niece. I have a child, but I have a niece. And it's kind of like the closest experience that I can have about having a child. And I understand that sometimes she has this explosion of her emotions, and I have to control myself. And that's also beneficial for me, because that allows me to grow as a person. And I know that I learn from her every single day. But that doesn't mean that because of that, or because I am a woman, it's mandatory for me just to give birth, to give her a cousin, or just to give my mom or my parent, my dad, a grandson, whatever. But the thing is that sometimes when I'm having these conversations, because I have openly said to them, like, I don't want to have kids. And they say, don't say that. And they say, like, I'm saying something really negative. Like, don't say it. You don't know what I'm talking about. Sometimes my dad told me once that I didn't know what I was talking about. That
Oh.
point I would consider to be even a single mom, and it's like no way. I don't. I'm not even a single mom. All the stuff, but it's the fact that having a child involves so much of your energy, of the management of your emotion when you work with them. You know what it's like in a way to be a parent, and it's so much because you're not perfect. You know that for the people that decide to be parents, I admire them. For the ones who are doing the job, because you're never perfect, you never have a guidance of how to do it, but you do the best you can as a human being. Provide to others a good experience whenever they are next to you. But that's why I guess when you're so self-conscious about the effects that you give to other people for the way you treat them, for the way you even feel, you don't have good days every single day. And sometimes you have to manage yourself in order for you not to affect others for the way you feel.
Yeah.
So imagine that you're having a really bad day, but besides that, you have to change your diaper, and you don't have, you cannot avoid that responsibility. And it's something that terrifies me a lot, and always been terrifying. I remember back then when I had a relationship, that was like 3 years ago. I had a 5-year relationship. We were not married, but he wanted to have 3 kids. And I always told him, like, I don't think so. I don't want to have children. And we had these differences. And he wanted to have, it wasn't actually the main reason we broke up, but I knew for a fact that we were not able to have a future because he knew what he wanted, and I knew what I wanted as well, because it's also my body. The pregnancy is also something that it's terrifying for me, because I'm the type of person that it's afraid of pain. And last year, and because I had some kind of disease, I had a surgery, and to me, that's something that was very scary. So imagine just giving birth, having a C-section, whatever you just wish to have, and just deal with it. The fact that your body changes, I know it's a beautiful thing, but somehow we need to understand that there also comes with the aesthetic part that you don't look good, you don't feel good with yourself. And so you don't only deal with the fact that you have a child and the responsibility, but how you look, on yourself, how you look in the appearance after you give birth. And that's something that also I don't want to deal with it. I know that it might sound shallow. It might sound like, oh, you're just talking that you don't want to have a child also because you don't want to ruin your body. But it's not only that, it's just what it comes with it. Because whenever you don't look good, sometimes you don't feel good. And if you don't feel 100%, then how are you going to be able to provide with a child a happy life? Or how are you able to provide these children with a good experience? Besides, I understand that when people have children and these type of changes happen to the woman, because the woman is the one that gets affected the most, the marriage also can be affected, because let's face it, guys sometimes tend to be really shallow as well. And if they see that, their wife changed their appearance because they have their child, then they're going to be judging her because her body looking a little bit different, and then they're starting it somewhere else. I know that not all the guys are the same, but we have to face that this is so many people's reality. And it's not fair for women, because every time you have a child, the child is going to be more your responsibility, even though if the dad is helping, it's 100% from the mom, because the child is always going to be needing you. So I think there's so many things that you have to think about. Are you willing to deal with that? Do you consider yourself strong enough just to know that this could happen, that you can end up your marriage because you're no longer having, an intercourse, because you don't have time, you have to take care of your child, because you don't look as sexy as you used to look, not feeling good. It's actually very difficult to lose the baby weight, because you're not feeling 100% because you're not sleeping correctly, and then you stress that you're not able to communicate with your husband, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, these are the things that I have always, thought about when it comes to having a child. And these are valid reasons for me as well. So I know it might sound shallow, but you know, it's a reality. It's a reality. We have
That's
to.
what people say. People are like, oh, well, who cares? Like, who cares if you get bigger or if you know, like your ankles swell or you get more hormonal acne? Like, who cares? It's all just like very, you know, physical appearance. It's like, but I care. Like, that's who cares. I care. You might not care, but I care. And so for me, I'm not going to do that. I also love that you said, who knows, like the husband might look at you after you give birth and they're like, ooh, like what happened to you? You're like 100 extra pounds. You just don't look the same that you used to. The thing is, as a mother, especially like as a woman, it's so important because you always have to prepare for being a single parent. There is no guarantee, especially after I've gone through a divorce. I know that nothing is certain. I thought I was going to be married to this person for the rest of my life, right? Like any normal person going into a marriage, they think it's going to last forever. But you never know what's going to happen, and you always have to prepare for the worst. If I would have had a child with my ex, I would be a single mother right now, and I would literally want to die because that sounds like the worst case scenario. I know there's single mothers out there who are killing it. They're doing great. They're amazing. But the thing is, I would be the worst single mother ever. I would want to literally just leave. And you never know. You never know. You might find this guy who's great, amazing, wants to be a good dad, has all these aspirations. He could die. You could get divorced. There's so many things that could happen, and then you are the sole provider and the guardian of that child or children, depending on how many you have. And for me, I'm like, I don't even want to think that far, let alone like thinking about pregnancy, but thinking like if I was to have children and then I was with the person who left me or who passed away, like, oh my gosh, the fact that I didn't want them in the first place and now I'm stuck with them and I don't have a partner to like help me? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It's I mean, it's so much pressure for us women. It's what it comes with, because it's the fact that, yes, like I said, and there are many men that they get easily bored when they see that you change your appearance. You know, I have seen, I don't know if you have seen, you know, through scrolling through Instagram, this trend of women showing their noses when before they're pregnant, and then they change. I mean, it's like a completely different woman.
Yeah.
And these are things that are reality, you know. And if you are willing, or if you're wishing just to go with the pregnancy, you always need to make so many questions to yourself if you're willing to go through that. All of the problems are changing your appearance. And sometimes there are women that after they have their children, they're not able to go back to what they used to be, you know, especially if you are the person that rely a lot on your image. And I know that what I'm talking about is something that might seem really shallow, but it's the reality. I mean, we take care of our physical because it's also a reflection of our health, and it's also really important. And what happens after you have a child, these things can change because everybody body is completely different. So you know,
I'll also add to that, when you're saying it's super shallow for us to have these, you know, they're super valid thoughts and valid reasons as to why to not have kids. But even just take it a step further, maybe the reason that, you know, let's say we're talking to a friend, maybe the reason the friend had a kid was a shallow reason because they were bored. I can't tell you how many times parents are like, oh, we were just bored, or we felt like we needed something more in our life. How shallow is that? Like, how shallow is that of a reason to bring a human into the world? So like me and you saying that we don't want our face to change or we don't want to get bigger or whatever it is, like that is so valid compared to parents who are just like, oh, I wanted to see what my baby looked like. Like what?
Look, here I'm just reading about Katie says you can take them for adoption if you're not ready to be a parent. Okay, this is something, of course, it's valid. However, whenever you have a child, you're going to always have a connection with that human being. And in my opinion, if I decide to have a child and then I'm going to give him for adoption, I'm always going to have in my conscience what happened to him.
Right.
And we realize that the system, especially when it comes to foster home, are not always the best you know, environment for them.
Yep.
And we need to be serious about that. That's why the controversial about the abortion, because many people are so pro-life, they want the children to, you know, born and all of the stuff. However, who is the quality of life they deserve? That's why there are so many broken children out there. Here in Latin America, it's really common to see children just selling, you know, candies in the street when they're supposed to be in, and then they're just working. So it's not an easy thing to say, oh, you're going to give them for adoption, but what's going to happen to them?
Right.
It's not, boy, oh no, I'm just giving them for adoption. I decided to have a child. It's not like that. So that's why it's better to have your mindset of saying, no, I'm not having a child. It's better so you avoid that type of situation. So you avoid that child or that human being just to have the worst experiences. Because I have listened so many times from people that, I don't know if you have watched this channel, Soft White Underbelly.
Yes.
That's a really good channel. I actually love it. And it's so surprising to see that many of these people that have gone through the most horrible things have gone or have been in a foster home.
Yes.
So for me, giving an adoption sometimes is not the best choice. So, you know, for those type of situations that I have actually listened. And here says Mexican Vanilla. All the responsibility always falls on the mother.
Yeah.
Even in the relationship. So no, thank you. It's not fair to me, and I don't want that burden. Yes.
I think what it boils down to is, do you desire to have a kid? If you do, and if you're willing to, you know, if you're, another thing we haven't even touched on, but if your kid comes out with a disability, obviously everything that everybody thinks the kid is going to become normal. They're going to be, you know, 5 fingers, 10 fingers, 10 toes. Like they're going to be, you know, just the best student at school. They're going to be a rocket scientist when they grow up. What if you have a child who has a crippling disability, some sort of ailment, something where you are the primary caregiver for the rest of its life? Like that alone, I will never have a child because of that reason alone. There is no guarantee that your kid is going to come out normal. And call me selfish because I don't care. There's no way, absolutely no way that I will sacrifice my life for someone else like that. I mean, plain and simple.
Being honest, you know, because there's this double standard. I think that's the way it's said, right? The double standard of people who, let's say, for example, they have these children with disability. They have to take care of them for the rest of their life. But yet they know that it's something that's difficult for them. And perhaps in them, they feel the regret. And maybe they feel remorse about that. So imagine just with that basically conflict the whole day, every day. And that's killing you in the inside because you know that that's your child. You hate the situation. And that can happen because you're a human being, you know?
It's added stress on top of the stress of having a child. And I mean, there's probably someone watching this right now and they're like, oh my gosh, these girls are crazy. That's okay. That's okay if you think that we're crazy, but these are very, very valid things that maybe you don't even want to accept to talk about, because a lot of the times parents just want to look at the sunshine, the flowers, the rainbows of their life as a mother or a father. But it's like, please tell us what you are feeling. Like the times that you've cried, please tell us about when you found your kid, you know, your 14-year-old daughter and she was with her boyfriend and got pregnant. Please tell me about the emotions that you felt at that moment, because like, there's no way that you were just living your entire life just, oh, my life is so great and being a mother is wonderful and I have no problems in the world. It's like, yes, you do. And you're not willing to tell people this, but even just like me, an onlooker, or looking at like, there's in Reddit and on Facebook, there's pages of parents who literally post regretting their children. I go on and I read those stories, and oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that those parents are out here being so vulnerable and bearing it all to strangers on the internet, because without that, I think people would be they would just be so, oh my gosh, they would just have kids without even thinking about it, because they're like, oh, well, I guess that's what you're supposed to do, and not even think about, oh, maybe during pregnancy I might actually pass away, because you can die from pregnancy, you know, like there's so many things that I'm just like, it doesn't make sense for me to have a kid. It does not make sense. 100% doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's what to me makes no sense. As somebody says that it's been selfish just to think like that, and thinking that you're not able because you're actually making yourself those questions.
Yes.
And maybe they can call you like you are overthinker, but it's not that. It's just that you are talking about the experiences from other people, and through your learning, through that, there's things that you want to avoid for yourself. You don't want to live that conflict every single day, and that's actually fine. I think there's also some type of wisdom that you show to yourself, and it's powerful to also decide from your body, you know. It's your body, it's also your decision.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here says, just one moment, please. Says, guys, you should do a podcast. It doesn't sound a bad idea. Okay. Just one. Do you see me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. All right, just. Okay, it says, my cousin has a child with severe disability. She barely sleeps and looks rough compared to people her age. It looks very, very difficult. Yeah, that's reality.
And
Yeah.
it is difficult. Like, you can't sugarcoat it. You can't be like, oh, it's fine. Like, taking care of a kid who has, let's say, quadriplegic, someone who has to be in a wheelchair, right? And you have to spoon feed them because their limbs don't work. You cannot tell me that is easy. Like, as an onlooker, I know that that's not easy. So if you were like, oh, it's a breeze, it's easy, I would know you're lying. But at the same time, like, it's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay as a parent to be like, this sucks. Like, I am really struggling. And, I wasn't planning on having a child who had a disability, but this is my life now. And, like, being able to just own up to those emotions and not trying to be like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. Like, you know what? You might not have a kid who has a disability. You'll be fine. It's like, no, I won't be fine because you're not even fine. And I love what you said earlier about learning from others' mistakes. I remember growing up, my parents would always say, especially my dad, he'd be like, learn from my mistakes. Don't do what I did. Learn from my mistakes. And so I'm like, I don't know, I feel like I'm smarter than the average person because I am taking as much information as I can and I'm learning from it and then evaluating it and being like, okay, this is not something that I want to do. I've learned everything that I need to learn. I've heard the experiences. I have done my own, like you, a teacher, a nanny. I have done my own in-person training, and I know that this is not something that is for me. So being able to just experience things through other people's eyes and not having to make that same mistake, because like, oh my gosh, if I were to have a child, or if you were to have a child, if someone who didn't want to have a kid had a kid, your life, the kid's life, like you were saying, it would not be a pleasant experience for either you or the child because you didn't want it. They're going to be, feeding off of your energy. And so I think if you don't want it, then don't do it.
I mean, and it's fine. It's fine to admit that somehow, sometimes you just don't want to be with them.
Yeah.
And even parents, they have their children, they love them, but they want their time alone, and that's what happens. It's also the reality. And it says here exactly, tell the not so great part about parents too. Literally, most of my friends have adult kids and they are having the worst time with them and don't even speak to them. That's also another thing, because your child can be someone completely different from you. It happens times that your child can be even your killer, because I have seen situations like this. You gave them the love, you gave them everything, and then it turned out to be somebody, the one that kills you and take away your life. So that's why for me, it's not enough reason somebody tell me like, to whom are you going to be when you become older? That's not enough reason, like we were saying at the beginning. That's just completely shallow.
Yep. The thing is too, like you don't realize, and I think a lot of parents also, they're like, oh, well, I just want a baby. Like, they're so cute. And oh my gosh, when they're wearing their clothes and blah, blah, blah. It's like, your baby is only a baby for a year. And then they're a toddler and then a preteen and a teenager and an adult, a 27-year-old woman, right? And then a 40-something. Like you said, you do not know the outcome. You do not know what they will think about you. Like you said, they could be your own killer. And so for me, it's like, there's nothing that's guaranteed. You're not guaranteed that your kid is going to be your best friend. Like a lot of these people are like, oh, I just want a mini me, or no, that doesn't happen. This isn't a Hallmark movie.
Exactly. Look, here says something that something I wanted to address, but I forgot. But says, let's talk about caring for a child or children, but while also dealing with a difficult spouse. You know that nowadays, see this also these men that think that it's good. I don't know, I know this is completely different, but I think it's also related about going 50, when it comes to dating. And when you're having a relationship, when you're living with them, you go 50-50, but it's never 50-50 for the woman, because we need to take care of the household chores, we need to take care of the child. They are 50-50 when it comes to financial. Yes, What about the house? Are you actually helping me? Are you actually helping me take care of the child?
Right.
Change the diaper? Whenever they need something else, they are going to ask for their mom.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about that, would you say, for example, how would you deal with a situation, when you're having a difficult spouse and they say 50-50, hence they don't want to be part of that difficult process when it comes to dealing with a child needs?
Yeah, oh, I don't even want to think about it because it's like, this is traumatic, you know? But at the same time, like, so valid, so valid. You never know what's going to happen once the kid is here. Yeah, the person might be like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to be a dad and blah, blah, until they're in the thick of it. 2 a.m. in the morning, they're having to get up and give the baby a bottle, and then they're grumpy the rest of the day, and that continues day after day after day. The fact that there's so many relationships that end after a child is born, like statistically, so many marriages are broken because of a child. Not saying that because, like the child was born, that the child was a bad kid. Not saying that at all. I think it's just there's two different lifestyles, the mom and the dad, and they're just butting heads. They cannot come together, and they cannot have this. And like I only say this because I really did have a good childhood experience where my mom and my dad, they were both like 50-50. I mean, they helped each other. It didn't matter if the mom had just changed the diaper and it was like, oh, it was the dad's turn. No, they would just take care of whatever they needed at the time. And so I was blessed seeing that growing up, but that's not how people are nowadays. Like, that's so traditional, and nowadays, like, that's not going to happen. And so for me, it's like, I would hate to have all that extra work, all that burden, all that extra just stress put on my shoulder trying to take care of myself and this little child, let alone if you have multiple kids, 2, 3, 4 kids, absolutely not. And having to deal with like dropping them off to school, or if you're going to do homeschool or their activities, soccer, ballet, karate, like it's too much. It's too much.
Mrs. Kirsten says Jeffrey Dahmer was a child once.
Yes.
That's true. He was a child.
So
and
true.
Something that triggers me the most is when I was saying at the beginning, I'm the type of person that worries a lot from people that I care about. And imagine having a child and then send them to school, and things happen that they can get killed at school. That is supposed to be the place that is the safest, and then we have the bullying situation that your child can commit suicide because someone is bullying them, and child is not addressing or not telling you anything. However, as a parent, you're the one who's going to be blamed because you're not taking care of your child enough, etc., etc. So it's stressful enough. When you think about all of these, situations that can happen, it makes me realize even after this life, I'm more certain about the fact that I'm not actually wishing to have a child because of all of these things that I think about, situations. And believe me, it's not an easy thing. I don't want to go and imagine how painful it must be, for example, for parents just to see how their children are mistreated, or that their child dies, or even worse, that their children hate them because they became really bad people. Because even though you love them, you don't know how to guide them, stuff like that. And sometimes it's complicated, and many people said you never know because you need to be a dad or a parent in order for you to know how it feels. I understand that part, and I don't know how would I be if I become a parent, but I'd rather not to find, because I know what it comes with it.
Right. I love that. Also, just to tie into that, the feeling of this love, this higher love that the parents have. They always say, oh, well, you'll never know true love. You'll never know unconditional love, whatever love. I always just say, and that's fine. Okay, now what? Like, I've accepted that I won't feel the love that you have for your child. Okay, now what? What is your other grievance? Like, what else do you need to talk about? Because for me, like, I can accept that, right? Like, and you know what? There's so many things that I want to say. Be like, yes, I do feel that love. I have a loving mother and father. I love my siblings. I love my dog. I love my cat. There's so many things that I do love. But let's just say theoretically, my love is here and your love is here. That's okay. I don't give a dang if you love more than I do, because right now I am good. I am getting 9 hours of sleep. I can go to the grocery store by myself. I can sleep. I can hang out, watch Netflix. And for me personally, that is enough.
Yes. What says Miss Kirsten, she's saying something that's also, it's a reality. People act like men should be rewarded for doing something basic as just spending time with this human they partially created. We glorifying fathers just for being present and involved is also their
Yep.
responsibility. That's the responsibility, and that's the thing that I don't like. But at being a woman, automatically they assume that you are the one who are supposed to be with the children. When they go to work, nobody asks them, and it's something that I have heard before. Nobody asks them to whom are the children. But when a woman goes to work, they're going to be asking to whom are your children,
Right.
who with, and it's your responsibility to always watch for them, but not the men. And it's something that still not change it, because automatically people just assume that you're supposed to be the one who cares the most. And then the parents have the freedom that they say, I don't love you anymore. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore.
Yeah.
And then the child is the one also let aside. And sadly, that's the reality as well.
Yep.
It says here, Manny Alamo says, my worst fear is that my life will become boring routine forever and ever, at least for 18 years. But what do you mean? By having a child or without a child? I don't know.
Maybe both.
I think, I don't know, I guess the life, you just decide how to do it. And what you're going to do during the day for you to satisfy yourself, fulfill yourself. There are so many ways you can do it. Create projects for growing as a professional, for growing as a person. There's always something to do that you can do in order for improving everything, not only to yourself, but everything that is surrounding you, at least for the smallest thing. So not necessarily have to do with only having children.
Right.
So just to finish with this live, I just would like you to tell me, which advice would you give to somebody that is undecided about whether or not to have a child?
Love that. I always say this at the end of my YouTube videos, and it's so cheesy, but I love it because it's just straight to the point. I always say, this is your life. These are your decisions. Live your best life. That's the best decision, best advice that I can give to someone, is to live your best life. Obviously, you know what is best for you. I don't, right? You don't. There's so many people who will say, oh, well, you should do this, or, oh, you should go to this school. You should go to this, whatever it is. But you know yourself best. And if people are not supporting you in your decision and your choice of whatever it is in life, literally whatever it is, then they're not your real friends. They're not your real family. And so for you to live your best life is for you to sit down with yourself. Maybe, I don't know, maybe tonight, if you're on the fence about anything, sit down with yourself and be like, what do I really want? Like, put all the distractions aside. Try not to listen to other people's voices, but what is it that I am really desiring right now? Because ultimately, whatever you desire is like your core, it's your gut feeling. And so, yes, it's really hard being child-free because there's a lot of people. I mean, even like you said with your parents who were like, don't say that. I was laughing because my parents have said that too. But there's so many people who will try to change your mind or put you down or make you maybe even like question your decision. But you know what's best for you, and living your best life looks totally different than me living my best life. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yes, I guess that's the point. It's your decision. You always need to be really strong. Even though you're not following the same path of many, you need to be fulfilled. And how you feel, I think that's the major key in order for you just to know whether or not you're making a good decision. It's how you feel.
Yep.
And if you feel great every time you wake up with your decisions, you're going in the good path.
Yep.
And I guess that's more than enough.
I love
that. Life is not guaranteed, and it's better just to live a quiet life because you're happy with what you decided, even though there were many people questioning your decisions, but not living a life full of regrets, I guess.
I love that.
So, thank you very much for your time, for sharing this with me. I guess, and I'm actually really happy to read all of the comments because I know that we're not alone when it comes to this.
Yes.
There are more women that are sharing this about being a parent, and we have to understand that we live in a world that is getting more and more complicated, and I guess we have to question whether or not it's actually worth it to bring a human being to live the experience that you don't know what can happen in the future.
I agree. Totally. Thanks for having me. This was so much fun. I love just speaking to someone who gets it. Somebody who's just like, girl, yes, I feel you. I love it. I love it. I love it, because there's not very many of us who are out here just exposing ourselves, really, and bearing it all. And so whenever I find someone who is just passionate and very secure with their stance, I'm like, yes, we got another one to speak out. Because I mean, like I said before, ultimately my presence here on social media, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, is to just inform people that there is another way to live. There is another side that isn't parenthood. And so if anything, just people knowing and awareness that, being child-free is a thing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not a sin just to decide that. And people should start, accepting it as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter if you're getting older, the thing is getting happier.
Yes.
So, well, guys, see you. I hope I can have another live with you at some moment. Thank you. It was nice having you. And thank you, everyone, that stayed until the end.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
Okay.